Now, what that means is, how do we get started? How do we get organized? A lot of governance doesn't have to be heavy-handed and disruptive. A lot of times, think of governance as the ability to maybe rethink how you coordinate maybe work that's already being done. And I like to use the analogy, and I like to use analogies a lot, but I'll give you another analogy about how governance can be thought of. Think about it as a symphony orchestra. And a symphony orchestra is all the musicians. That's the staff in your company. Those are the different departments. You've got a department who's playing the woodwinds and the percussion and the brass and something else, and they're all there. Now, before the concert starts, everybody's tuning up and playing some warm-up song, and it's all very chaotic, and it doesn't sound good music at all. When the orchestra conductor steps to the podium, and the orchestra conductor starts to wave the baton, he or she is creating alignment through the musicians that they're all playing the same song at the same tempo and the same pace. The musicians were already there. They're already experienced and knowing what to do. But through coordination, you get them to go from a random set of noise to a symphony orchestra kind of playing good music. So I like to think about governance as a coordinating body. It can be a very lean organization, but it's going to be based heavily on the last point on this slide, which is around accountabilities and resource assignment. But let me get to that in a second. So if we think about the musicians as the people living in silos, the coordination of governance is to get you out of your silos and to think organizationally. You're no longer a finance department or a sales department or a manufacturing department. You are a piece of an organization that is part of a value stream. And getting out of your silos starts to realize we have to manage this through a consistency to drive the change to our customers. We need to think organizationally, not departmentally. That becomes a big shift in thinking. Too often, before we wanted to use analytics to drive our change, we would think departmentally and get away with it, because we would run a billing system, or we'd run an order system, or we'd run some sort of a production planning system in our nice little silos. But as soon as we want to use analytics to drive change in the marketplace and be disruptive and to drive insights, we can't get away with that anymore. We have to think organizationally. And my view is that governance is the pathway to think organizationally. We need to think about our customers' engagement. Customers think about us as organizations, not as departments. We need to understand the value streams that are working together, where data is a part of the value stream, but it's not all by itself. Now, the way we coordinate things is through virtual organizational structures. Now, what does that mean? It means I'm going to talk, before I end off with my discussion here in a few minutes, we need to think about the concept of a program, a delivery program. A program is meant to be a virtual structure, and by virtual I mean we probably have dotted line responsibilities from different parts of the organization reporting to a program leadership team of some kind. It's the leadership team that helps to make sure the right policies are being developed, that they're being translated, they're being acted on, and there's some sort of an enforcement activity going on. So the organizational structure has to overlay on top of our existing vertical structure. So most virtual structures I'm talking about here are horizontal in nature. It's having the leadership to tie the groups together to work at a value stream level. Now, several companies are currently in the process of putting in, well, this isn't new really, for the last maybe 10 years or so, but chief data officers or chief analytics officers or chief performance officers, their mandate and job is to get data, is to get value from data. So they have to think at a value stream level. That means we have to coordinate these activities across these different silos so that they're enabling each other. So the organizational structure, there's different models to follow, and we haven't got time to talk about that today, but think of the different structures as being, in some cases it could be a department, but in most cases it's not. It's getting a small team of people that coordinate the organization. But you can't do that without authority and without executive support. So the accountabilities come with leadership and they come with authority. So you have influence over how the silos work, and people have to be comfortable working in matrix organizations with dotted line responsibilities so that the work we do is consistent with the policies. And if you think about this, another simple example to think about how corporate safety is managed. we don't have to be a safety specialist to be safe, but we have safety specialists who develop policies to say, how should we be kept safe? So if you're working in an industrial company where there's lots of dangerous situations and materials and whatnot, the policies are designed to say, you need to have a face mask in this part of the plant. You need to understand what this alarm means, how to react if there's some sort of a leak. Or if we're not an industrial company, we have a big parking lot, we have to know what are the policies for how we drive in our parking lot and how we park our cars. We have policies in our offices about we can't ride a bicycle down the hallway, or we can't play touch football in the conference room. These become policies that are common sense, but it's the safety policies to say you can't do this in this situation, or you need to do that in a different situation. So we can all become safe without having to be safety specialists. But if there's a fire alarm or a tornado alert or something going on, we all follow the policies to know what to do in a situation where this maybe leads to a lack of safety. That means there's accountable people in the company that develop the safety policies that we all have to follow. And that same metaphor can be used in terms of the world of data, in terms of data value. So my point here is that we need to have some mechanism to assign accountabilities and authority across organizational boundaries. And I believe that the mechanism for doing that is what I call a program. Now, programs might have different definitions out there, but I'm calling a program a virtual structure that might have a leader or a committee or a team that leads it, but it has responsibilities to get work done by people in different parts of the organization, and it has accountabilities assigned to get the work done. It has a program. In this case, it might be a data governance program, or it could be a data value governance program. It has business objectives. This goes back to the impact I want to produce. Its job is to coordinate multiple projects and multiple activities, and it also can provide services to the organization to make itself more competent and more capable. So my belief is that programs are designed to coordinate the delivery of many projects and provide many services to the organization, with the intent of making sure that the value streams we're talking about are well coordinated and aligned, so that the value and impact we're producing is there and realizable. So you can think about governance, and sometimes the word governance gets in the way. We think of governance as a speed bump. Think of governance, a governance program, as a way of enabling excellence. You could call this data value excellence as opposed to data value governance. You could brand it that way. We tend to call it governance because that's what it's been called for the last several years. So we think of governance as policy enabling, but it could lead to things we call operational excellence, and that can only happen at the value stream level. So think about programs as an organizational structure that overlays on top of the traditional vertical structure we have to draw people together. It's the orchestra conductor. The different musicians live in our different departments, and we're trying to align them. We're trying to get them to play the same song, and that comes from authority and coordination. Now, what happens now, think of some examples of integrated programs. This might be occurring in your company without realizing it, that data governance or data value governance needs to be a part of these existing threads. So people do operational excellence for process improvement today. There are data science programs going on. Some companies are doing digital transformation projects. We're exercising and doing lean management to get rid of waste in our companies. We have customer experience improvement programs, process automation. Some people, we have business intelligence and analytics programs. These are all examples of programs. Now, what this means is that all of these are heavily dependent on data, and they all want to produce value from data. So rather than governing data separately and independently, we need to value or govern data value holistically across the different programs. And that becomes a coordination activity where we want to connect the dots between the different maybe programs or activities and understand how these things become enabled and coordinated.